Okay, Chairman, we're now live.
Thank you very much, Neil, and welcome to a virtual meeting of the Audit Committee at the London Borough of Hillingdon. This virtual meeting is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon London. The purpose of this committee is to review and monitor the Council's audit, governance, risk management framework and financial and non-financial performance, as well as overseeing the financial reporting process of the Statement of Accounts. My name is John Chesshire and I am the chairman of this meeting. We'll now think a little bit about online housekeeping as usual. Before we start, some important online housekeeping for everyone present today. Please ensure any mobile phones around you are on silent. Please keep your microphone muted when not speaking and then unmute to speak. As chairman, I will call on those to speak during the meeting. In terms of technical meeting control, if any councillor leaves the virtual meeting partway through for a period of time, e.g. lost connection, I will continue the meeting unless we're not quorate. And quorum is as 4 members. Muir, sorry. Did I see that you'd raised a hand, or was that?
I just wanted to mention I'm on gold duty, so I do have the council's emergency phone to the side. It's very unlikely to go off, but if it does, I will mute my screen and take the call if that's okay. Thanks.
Absolutely, no trouble, and thank you for letting us know. Look, hopefully it won't go off. Attendance roll call then. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd like to do a roll call at the councillors and others present to confirm attendance. Please indicate you are present when I say your name. Councillor Flynn.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Edgington.
Good evening, I'm present.
Hi, Anne, nice to see you again. Councillor Graham.
Yes, Chairman, I'm present, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And we have Councillor Morgan substituting for Councillor Mills.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you very much. Please, can I ask that officers confirm their attendance when I read out their names as well, please? Paul Wayman, Corporate Director of Finance.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Muir Lowry, Deputy Director of Exchequer. You see, I got it right this time. Exchequer Services and Business Assurance.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you, Muir. Obviously on a roll today. Sarah Hydry, Head of Internal Audit and Risk Assurance.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you, Sarah. Nice to see you. Zach O'Neill, Head of Counter Fraud.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you, Zach. Hi. Stephanie Rao, Risk and Insurance Manager or Audit Manager.
Present, Chair.
Thank you, Stephanie. James Lake, Chief Accountant.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Nice to see you, James. Neil Fraser, Democratic Services Officer.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Neil. Suresh Patel, Ernst & Young.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Thomason Aliu, Ernst & Young.
Present.
Thank you. Larissa Midoni, Ernst & Young.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, Adrian Balmer, Ernst & Young.
Present, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think that was everyone I've got on my list. So is there anyone else out there? No. Okay. Thank you all very much indeed for that. We'll now move on to the agenda. And first of all, as usual, we've got sort of 9 items that we'll be taking publicly. And as we mentioned, we'll be taking part 2 separately at the end in a private format and forum. Agenda item 1 then is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so you've already alluded to it, but Councillor Richard Mills has given his apologies and John Morgan is present as his substitute.
Thank you very much, Neil. Agenda item 2 then was election of vice chair. I think I've got that next on my agenda. So how does this one work, Neil?
I think John Morgan is about to propose Councillor Flynn as vice chairman, I believe.
I am indeed, Neil. I'd like to propose Councillor Duncan Flynn as the Vice Chairman for the Audit Committee.
Chairman, can I second that proposal for Councillor Duncan Flynn to be Vice Chairman?
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. I guess the vote is passed then, and thank you very much, Councillor Flynn, for becoming Vice Chair on this occasion.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I look forward to working with you in this capacity, and obviously our thanks to Councillor Goddard and Councillor Lavery, who've moved on from the committee following the changes. So thank you very much, Councillor Flynn. Thank you very much for nominating and seconding. Agenda item 3 then, declarations of interest. Okay.
I think Councillor Edgerton has had his hand up there, Chairman.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. Sorry, Councillor Edgerton.
Yes, I've got my normal declaration, a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item whatever related to the local government pension scheme, as I'm a retired member.
Lovely, and thank you very much. Okay, no other declarations of interest. Sorry, so it's only just come through now that you'd raised your hand. Obviously, there's a little bit of a lag on my screen there. Sorry, Tony. Agenda item 4 then is what I mentioned before. All items marked part 1 will be considered in public, and any items marked part 2 will be considered in private. So we'll continue with the public section of the agenda then. And agenda item 5 is the minutes of the meeting that we held on the 24th of November 2020. Any comments on the minutes? Page 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, I was very happy with the minutes. Thank you very much. We'll take the minutes as read then. Thank you very much. Agenda item 6 then. External audit annual audit letter for 1990 to 20. Sorry, for 2019 to 2020. I know there have been some delays in some locations, but thankfully not that long, and certainly not here. So apologies for that, the audit letter.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. This paper brings to committee the annual audit letter from EY. The letter is a high-level report on the activities of EY over the year, their findings and their focus on future work. In terms of the audit, committee will remember that an unqualified audit opinion was issued in November 2020. In addition, EY has advised that proper arrangements to secure value for money were in place. There was consistency in other reporting with the accounts, and there were no matters which required reporting in terms of public interest or to the Secretary of State. I would also like to highlight that out of the 33 London Borough audits, Hillingdon was only one of 7 who managed to get their accounts completed and audited by the deadline. So overall for 1920, it was a positive result for Hillingdon. In terms of other updates, HM Treasury has hopefully fixed the reporting module of their whole government accounts, which means EY should now be able to finish this part of the audit. The teachers' pension certification was completed on time, and the housing benefit assurance process has been completed and submitted in line with the deadline. That was last Friday. This year's report was very positive, and EY has cited that a significant number of bodies would not have been able to complete this certification by the January deadline. So another positive result for those involved at Hillingdon. Lastly, the pooling of the housing capital receipts audit has started this week. So that's my brief update, but if I may, I'll now pass over to Suresh of EY to expand further on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James. I'm going to ask Adrian's going to just do a very quick summary, because I think James has picked up the key points. But before he does that, I just want to let the committee know that unfortunately, this will be Adrian's last meeting for Hillingdon. I think he's been auditing you for the last 4 years. We have changed his portfolio. He'll be looking after some rather complicated audit clients based on his experience, and I think a lot of the things that James has alluded to is probably testament to the relationship that Adrian has helped to build with your finance team. And I know change is always brings uncertainty, but I've got Larissa, who's on the call, who you know from the pension fund last year. She will now take over as the manager for the main council as well. And Thomasin, who's also on the call, will remain as the lead senior. So whilst it is disappointing, I know from the finance team's perspective that Adrian will be departing from the audit manager role, we are retaining continuity, and like I say, Larissa was involved in the pension fund audit last year. So I just wanted to let you know that change is being made for 2021. Adrian, did you want to say a quick few words about the audit letter?
Yeah, thanks, Suresh. So the annual audit letter brings together, so it's our last formal reporting effectively to you as a committee for the 1920 audit. As James has just given an overview, highly positive in terms of the work that was done for 1920 and the conclusions reached in both the main audit and also the pension fund. In terms of exceptions, we didn't note many exceptions, and we brought to the committee back in November our findings in terms of the misstatements that we identified in terms of the audit, none of which were material, and actually both the opinions on both the main audit and the pension fund were unqualified, as James has said. In terms of the whole of government accounts work, so there's been a national IT issue, which we're currently working through. The resolution to that is now in place, and we're hopeful they'll be able to conclude on your whole of government accounts review, hopefully by the end of this week, and we'll do the formal submission back to the NAO as the group auditor for that particular piece of work, and that would then be our final piece of work for 1920. As soon as that work's completed, we don't foresee any particular issues that we need to bring to your attention. As soon as that work's concluded, we'd then be in a position to issue the conclusion certificate for 1920, and then I know Larissa has already been in contact with James in terms of planning for 2021, and some of the challenges that'll bring given the timelines and also the ongoing issues with COVID. But that's really all I wanted to say in terms of the report. As I say, it's very positive, so that's a kind of good reflection on the work that the council's done and also the finance team in particular in what's been a very challenging year.
And then just a final thing to say on the letter, Chair, is just on the fees page, which you've probably picked up is near the end of the report. There we just clarify the final position on our fees in respect of the additional work that we were required to carry out to conclude on the 1920 audit, and we've provided Paul with a lot of detail to support the input hours by grade and what that work actually was, and we've reached an agreement on that final fee. So the final fee of 152313 is the agreed position, and then that now goes off to PSAA for them to approve the additional work. I should just clarify in that table, I made reference to the increase to the scale fee, the 82,728. If you remember, that was the national debate we're having with PSA over the scale fee. So that's not part of the increase in the fee. If PSA hopefully eventually will determine one way or another around that. Once they do that, we will obviously ensure that any potential duplication with the additional work that we've done and the fees associated to that, that won't be then part of any scale fee increase. So I just want to make that clear. No double counting will be had. So we'll stop there, Chair, and take some questions.
Okay, thank you all very much indeed. And colleagues, any questions for Suresh, for Adrian, or the team? Councillor Graham, I see a hand raised.
Yes, Chairman. On page 17, which is the financial statement audit, I would just like some clarification under significant risks. It states valuation of land and buildings, and there's a narrative which says that we determined that the valuation was materially stated, but we did report a potential difference of 4.1 million, etc. on the valuation. And I would like some explanation of that because I don't quite understand it. It seems quite a high figure to me, but perhaps it is in the general scheme of things.
Yeah, I can respond to that, Chair. So from a materiality point of view, just from the audit for 1920, our materiality threshold was £12 million. So in terms of the 4 million, that's within the 12 million materiality threshold. So that's when we said it's not material, that's the kind of range that we're working within. So the 12 million was determined from a kind of agreed principles within audit firms in terms of how we determine kind of headline materiality and also a lower threshold of materiality. So although the number by itself may seem large in terms of the balance sheet, which is over £1 billion worth of assets, is actually quite a small figure, but obviously we did need to report that difference because it was an area of estimation difference which we identified as part of the audit.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, I was imagining that in the scheme of things, it wasn't all that massive, but it seemed a sizable figure that I ought to just comment on. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Edgington. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
There were a couple of things. Thank you for that. There were a couple of things which I was going to ask about. One was on page 19 of the report. It refers to materiality, and it's the reporting threshold. It talks about there a threshold differences in excess of 5%, but I wasn't clear what that 5% represented, because it's elsewhere we're talking about a certain percentage of gross expenditure or a percentage of planning materiality, but in that it just says 5%, and I don't know what that represented. So that was one point. The other was related to the comments on page 26 with the IFRS 16 leases, and there's reference there to changes being required in the future. I just wondered what the implications of that would be in the 2019-20 accounts, please.
So I can give a response to both of those, but I imagine James might want to come in on the IFRS 16 point. On the first one, the 5%, that the reporting threshold, that's 5% of the materiality level. So I haven't got it in front of me. I can't get the page references to work, but in effect, our reporting threshold is 5% of whatever the materiality level we set. So the 12 million that Adrian was referring to, 5% of that then should be their reporting threshold. And then the IFRS 16, so that will impact the 21-22 accounts, but in your 2021 accounts, you will have to make some disclosure about how that transition is going. So I don't know if James, I think you've already started doing some work on this, because if you remember, IFRS 16 was meant to come in for, I get my years confused, but 2021, they've kicked it down the road quite a few times in terms of when.
Twice, I think.
Yeah. So as a result of that, you've already started doing some work to identify all your leases and to understand what the implications would be. But I don't know if James wants to add a bit more flavour to that.
Yeah, so it's all a case of trying to identify the leases that will need to go on the balance sheet. So operating leases that will become finance leases. So identifying those. So in terms of last year's accounts, there's nothing in the 1920, but 2021, we'll have to sort of say what impact that will be. So we're sort of out there trying to assess these leases and trying to sort of quantify the value that would need to go on the balance sheet. But again, it actually won't go on the balance sheet until the year after that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, could I ask one more question?
Yes,
it's
please.
Really related to the fees, and I appreciate that there is an increase in scale fee which has been requested, and that's got to be agreed. I just wondered whether this committee should have some involvement in at least looking at the fee level, and I think we discussed this last year sometime, if I remember, Chair. Particularly as it's one of the items that on the terms of reference, number 11, I think, which says that we should ensure that there's value for money for external audit. And I'm not sure, well, I think at least we should be informed at least of what is happening in terms of fee levels.
Thank you, Councillor Edgington. Obviously, Suresh has reported that he's worked through this with Paul. Paul, is it worth you sort of setting our minds at rest that value for money has been ensured during the discussions that you've had there with Suresh?
Well, I think we would always report to Audit Committee the final fees or the proposed fees and then the final fees. So there's no question of Audit Committee not being able to comment on and have visibility of the breakdown of the fees and so on. In terms of the actual agreement of them, it's a bit of a strange process because, as Suresh knows, we have to go through PSAA. And irrespective of what I say and what Audit Committee say, essentially the PSAA will rule on what is an appropriate scale fee for an authority like us. So that is, is the current issue we've got, I guess.
Councillor Edgington.
Yeah, I'm just going to suggest then that perhaps the terms of reference should be amended to reflect the fact that we actually have no particular involvement in level of fees. value for money.
Suresh.
I think this is where you might have to separate out the scale fee from additional work related fees, because it's the additional work that we report to you directly, and we flag it in our audit plan that we're going to have to do additional work around, your valuations of property, for example, or because of COVID implications on financial reporting. That we tell you about, and that's the thing we agree with Paul about. Look, we've spent an extra 50 hours on that. It's the scale fee that Paul says is right.
And that's outside.
And that's outside of your hands. It's outside of our hands, and we're trying to influence PSA on that. But ultimately, they would say they consult on those scale fees every year, and that's probably your opportunity.
Yeah, and they're consulting at the present time, as you know. I will be responding to the consultation, and I'll make my thoughts or share my thoughts through that process. But I'm not sure that we need to change the terms of reference for the committee on that part. Maybe we'll have a discussion offline on that, Councillor Edgington.
Okay, fine, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no questions, but I did want to say thank you very much, both to Ernst & Young and to James and Paul and the team there for the hard work again in getting us to this point. I'm impressed that we are one of the few London boroughs to have hit the target and delivered the accounts in a timely fashion, and I think that's credit to all of you for the hard work that you've put into this. And I think the next year is certainly going to be a challenging one to repeat that level of performance given everything, but I know that you all do have good working relationships that will survive Adrian's departure, and thank you very much, Adrian, for the hard work you've put in over the years here. And so it is a thank you from the committee for getting us to this point. Well done to everyone, and let's keep this joint working up effectively into the future. So thank you all very much indeed, and thank you in particular, Adrian, for your work with us over the years.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on then. Agenda item 7, Internal Audit Progress Report for Q3 2020 to 2021.
Thank you, Chairman. So this presentation refers to agenda item 7 on pages 33 to 51 of your papers, and presents to the committee a summary of the internal audit work carried out in Q3. So since the last internal audit progress report, activity has started to gain momentum again. We have 4 assurance reviews, including 1 follow-up, which is concluded. A further 4 assurance reviews are at draft report stage. 10 assurance reviews are in progress, and 2 grant claims have been certified. You will have noted in the report that the tree inspections report assurance review that was carried out received no assurance. I can go into that in some summary information for you now, or I can hold that off into further questions. I'll hold off until further questions. I can see Councillor Edgington has got some questions. In terms of other reviews where we're making good progress, you will also have noted that against our KPIs, we are off the mark in terms of our 5% tolerance against KPIs 5 and 6, which are the draft report and final report stages by end of March. This is mainly been impacted by the lack of Q1 work that was carried out by the internal audit team, and meant that we are working our way through the internal audit plan, but we haven't been completing audits, including the Q1 work, because of the fact that we were seconded to assist in the food delivery service. But we are monitoring that carefully and are trying to keep on track. So we will report to the audit committee on our progress against that as well. Appendix C contains the Q4 internal audit plan, which we've developed with our audit needs analysis and through discussions with senior managers and corporate directors. We've tried to keep it as high level as possible and concentrate and focus on the highest areas of risks, and there are 5 high risk areas, which include IT, housing, and social care. So they are, I would say, the 3 most strategic risks at the council are kind of in focus at the moment, especially with COVID as well. Lastly, I just wanted to add that our recruitment exercise and our restructure has gone very well. We've successfully recruited to all posts. We had 3 vacancies at the time the report went out, but one of the ladies has started on Monday and a further 2 are just finishing off their recruitment checks. So they'll be starting in a few weeks or so. There were no other matters that I wanted to bring to your attention. Happy to answer any questions and to take from yourselves any areas of risk that you think internal audit should be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Councillor Edgington, fire away with your questions, please.
Only briefly, I think. Yes, I was interested in the tree inspections, and perhaps, Sarah, you could give us details of the high-risk ones. Secondly, I noticed on the follow-up review related to New Year's Green Lane that there were some recommendations. I can't remember when the original insurance work was done, but it's probably some time ago. I see that some of the recommendations haven't been implemented, one not at all, and I hope that that's not a high risk one. And thirdly, yes, it was on the detailed, well, actually there's a fourth, but the third one was Queen's Walk Resource Centre, which is planned for the current quarter. And I wondered whether, you say it's assurance, but to me it sounded more like consultancy, as it seems to be an opportunity to try and establish whether there are opportunities to generate further income. Finally, as just a comment on the IT, I hope, and I don't think it was particularly mentioned there, but I hope that some work perhaps could be done on the website. Because the website to me is a complete mixture of very old, some new, some missing links. There seems to have been some work which was done at some stage to update the website, and those look pretty good, but quite a lot of the information is very difficult to find for me, and I think for members of the public will be even worse. I'm sorry, all those questions, but anyway.
No, that's okay. So if I start with the IT website one, I think you're right. To be fair to IT, I believe that they were in the process of going through archiving information and updating the website, but then I think COVID happened, and that led to, and the remote working exercise became a huge undertaking for the IT team and for comms as well. So, but I will go back to them with regards to that and find out if, in terms of where they are with progress on that, and I can report that back to the committee and find out from them if they need a piece of audit or assurance work done around that in terms of as a high risk area. With respect to New Year's Green Lane, do you mind if I come back to you on those topics? Because I know that at the last audit committee meeting, I was going to give members I reached an agreement with yourselves about changing the follow-up process so that any extensions would be agreed at a corporate director level, and explanations would be provided to audit committee about any areas that were outstanding, but because the audit committee happened late November and we only had December to update anything on in terms of follow-up work, it wasn't enough to bring to committee at the Q3 report. So we are planning to bring you an update on Q4, and that will include the New Year's Green Lane update as well, but I will give you a separate response to that as well, if that's okay, if you don't mind. I just want to make sure I get that all correct for you. With regards to the tree inspection review, so this was a piece of work that was a mixture of our audit needs analysis and also senior management that are going through especially with green spaces, they were going through a restructure at the time because I think an officer had resigned, so they were looking at resource. And there was some insurance claims as well. So they wanted to find out from internal audit what we could do to assist them, because they're very good at the reactive work, but they need more assistance with the proactive work. So our high priority recommendations that we raised wasn't necessarily about the way that they do their work, which we found to be good and found to find assurance in. It was more to do with the fact that they lack a tree strategy and a policy, which is a legislative requirement. Also, they, like I said, they do reactive, reactive instead of proactive, so it's not risk-based. And their inspection regime needed finessing. So the recommendations we've raised are around their strategy, risk management process, resource management as well, to look at their staffing, and they are in the process of recruiting as well, and better management of their inspection reports and management oversight of those reports as well, because those come in very handy for inspection monitoring and for insurance claims as well. And so those were the 4 high priority risk areas that we raised. And with regards to Queen's Walk, it could be that the way that we've described the audit to you makes it sound like an consultancy piece rather than assurance piece, but it is about a value for money piece, as I understand, and possibly Stephanie could come in and assist with that, because she was in the planning meeting with the corporate director at the time. But as I understand, it's there is a opportunity there to use a resource in a way that will help residents more and will help service users more. And so they've asked internal audit to go through the strategy with them and to analyse the work that can be carried out there. Was there anything else, Stephanie, that you wanted to add?
No, nothing to add. That was exactly what was discussed at the planning meeting. It was looking at value for money for the service users and looking at how the cohort was changing so it's to meet their needs, basically.
Does that answer everything, Councillor Edgington?
I think it does for those 4 questions. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, both. Sarah, were you satisfied that the management team in the tree inspection area, did they engage with the audit and, you know, have they bought into the recommendations that you've just described to us there?
Yes, very much so. We couldn't have asked for better stakeholders, to be fair. They were really encouraging of the report. And despite the no assurance opinion, which for some people can be quite daunting and can be and they can look at it quite negatively, they were really happy with the report, and we got a really good client feedback questionnaire from them as well. And it was a good opportunity. I think it added value in terms of the recruitment as well for them, because they know then exactly what they need to improve on, and with some fresh staff coming in as well, that will help them give a good plan in terms of our recommendations about actions to take forward and how to improve the service.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any further questions? Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of areas I'd just like to ask about, which are both topical areas for various reasons. So on the bottom of page 12 of the report, there's building control, and we're all familiar with the fact that this issue around cladding and various fire safety issues are very high profile at the moment, and MHCLG are working on this pretty urgently, so I understand. So I just wondered if, given the what is going on in relation to this issue at the moment, whether that is having any sort of impact on the audit that's taking place in that area. And also the top of page 13, where it says Ofsted readiness, of the schools being closed at the moment. I just wondered how the fact that schools are closed and are still likely to be closed for a few more weeks, how that is potentially impacting on that item as well.
Okay. With respect to the building control audit, I think what you've mentioned about the legislative changes is very much influencing this audit, which is why it's come as a high risk area and one that the service has requested internal audit to assist with. From the scope, it looks like we're looking to the inspection criteria. We're looking at the with respect to the cladding and the changes in legislation to cladding. So all of those will form part of our scope for the audit, and I believe that's why it's come up on our radar. It was a corporate risk as well at the time, but because we had changed our cladding and been very proactive in doing that in our borough, But with respect to the legislative changes, it's now come to our attention that they want internal audit to come and review this, and then we can give assurance over the cladding areas as well. And with respect to the Ofsted's readiness review, this is in respect to the this is the children's social care provision rather than the education provision, which is what the internal audit review will be looking at. So it's on a children's social care perspective rather than a going into schools review.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Flynn, is that okay?
Councillor Edgington.
Yes, could I just, related to building control, could I ask a supplementary? Obviously, the high rise and the Grenville tragedy has influenced it, but of course building control is much wider than just the aspects of cladding, and I think that also fire breaks and a series of other things. I think there was one property which the council has or had, which was in Packet Boat Lane. I don't know whether that could also be part of your review.
Okay.
Because I think there were some serious problems with that. And it would be useful to know whether those have been addressed and who was at risk and who was at fault. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Just a couple of short ones from me, Sarah. Are you pleased at the results then of the recruitment exercise? I guess we are, and it's a case of more when people can start and get on with the work.
I'm very, very pleased. I think even with the COVID kind of pandemic that was going on, we thought recruitment was a bit slow to begin with. It's slowly started to get momentum, and we got 3 exceptional candidates, I believe, and they all come with their own unique experiences and skills. I really can't wait for them to start, to be honest, so that we can crack on with the audit plan. But also, it's going to be a challenge inducting new people, because two of which are from external, have joined externally, so they will be brand new to the London Borough of Hillingdon, and so the induction of new people through the remote working process is going to be interesting, but we're working with that.
All right, thank you very much for that. Where do you think the final position will be? Asking you to predict a little here is always difficult. Regarding those KPIs, the couple of them that are just below where you'd like them to be.
I'll be honest. I think KPI 5 and 6, because of the loss of work in Q1 and the gaining momentum, because we're trying to be as flexible as we can with colleagues, because trying to do an audit in a pandemic with remote working and trying to do your day job, I appreciate is a huge ask. We may miss them. I'll be honest, we may miss KPIs 5 and 6, but I'm not going to be devastated by that, if I'm honest. I think the team have done exceptionally well under the circumstances. If everything goes to plan with Q4 in terms of the audit plan being agreed by yourselves and there are no deferred audits or cancelled audits, and we're on track to complete everything by the end of May, we will have done more audits this year than we did last year or the year before that. And so it's nearly 30 pieces of work, which is, we're back to 2016-17 kind of audit plans, which is where we have wanted to be, and which is why we've pumped more resource into the audit team. So even with COVID, even with losing Q1 and maybe missing KPI 5 and 6, I think that's still a very good year for internal audit and for the organisation, I hope.
All right, thank you very much for that. And speaking of the Q4 plan, I'm very pleased to see 5 high-risk areas being reviewed by you and the team there, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the results of this work in due course, because I think you're certainly looking at important areas that concern me and my colleagues on the committee, and let's see how these audits come out.
Excellent, thank you.
I did just have one final question about the plan, if I may. I see you'll be reviewing us again this year. This is a regular annual occurrence then?
This is indeed, yeah.
For our new colleagues on the committee. Will you be talking to other committee members other than myself this time round?
We hope to do that, yes, if that's possible.
Okay. I think it'd be good too, rather than just to me. Okay, thank you very much. Unless there's any final questions. No, thank you very much indeed, Sarah, and well done again to the team for persevering in the difficult environment that it is to try and do remote audits. So well done to everyone.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for the report and the update. Neil.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just for the benefit of the minutes and the broadcast, can we just confirm that the plan is therefore approved?
Apologies. And I'm looking round. If anybody has any concerns about the plan, no, then plan approved for the final quarter. Thank you very much. We have agenda item 8, which is the counter fraud progress report for Q3 2020 to 2021.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, as Chair mentioned, counter fraud progress report for Q3, starting on, I believe, page 55 of your packs. So key points to note for the committee are that I believe it's been a good quarter for the team. We seem to be back to pre-COVID levels of savings to report at 413,000 for the quarter, putting us at 741,000 overall, as is outlined in Appendix B of the report. So despite the lockdown, the performance has been good. The key aspects of this performance are that we have achieved 5 properties this quarter, bringing us to 11 for the year in terms of recovery due to housing fraud, which is obviously down on performance compared to last year, but it does indicate a significant upwards trajectory in the performance of housing fraud. Also, we've been working on Beds and Shed project, which I did promise the committee I'd report on this quarter, and we're up to 20 identified for the year and 12 for this quarter alone. So the project's been successful, but we are still working on it and should have further outcomes to report in Q4. The one significant aspect to mention is that we've managed to complete our restructure of the team, and it's fully embedded now. And this is actually with the 3 distinct teams providing specialist areas of counter fraud coverage for the council. We've made significant improvements in the area of social care finance, and can report 130,000 of indicated savings in that area, which we're largely down to our look at the financial assessments process for social care finance, but also disabled facilities grants as well. But that again is indicated in Appendix B of the report. We also carried out in the run-up to Christmas a blue badge operation, as it's a key part of the year to look at that kind of fraud, and achieved a very good result in 20 badges seized. We're still working through these cases in terms of the what sanctions we may apply to them, but it's indicate that we'll probably be looking at financial penalties and for the people involved in those. We are still providing support to the COVID-19 grant scheme to businesses, which we're providing assurance over in terms of prepayment and post-payment assurance checks. And of course, this is taking some resource from my team to do, which is largely reflected, I believe, in some of the KPIs performance in terms of the verifications, because staff are working on the COVID-19 grant schemes, are usually involved in the verifications work, but I'll talk more about that in a bit. The other thing to mention is just a small mistake from the previous Q2 report in the number of referrals that we were actually received for the year. Just to point out that there is a correction there to show the correct number of referrals, as we'd missed out a certain section of referrals that we'd received. It's in part 2.8 of the report. We are still facing significant difficulties in terms of property recovery and actually being effective in counter fraud work, just in the fact that the courts are obviously still have a different approach to tenancy fraud cases, in that we're not able to get quick possession of properties, and so it still takes a long time to get through the courts. But we are looking to address this by taking different measures and getting properties back by negotiation with residents where there is tenancy fraud involved. And social distancing measures are causing us to carry out much more desk-based investigations from home as well, rather than going out and visiting, because we are able to still do that, but we're receiving significant pushback from residents in some areas where where obviously people are feeling it's not necessarily appropriate. We are still doing it where necessary. Just to draw your attention to the KPIs performance. Again, progress with 5 green KPIs. I did mention about the slight drop in performance with the verifications. Specifically, we've been slow to pick up some of those, specifically the first-time buyer cases for verification. But there is some good performance, I believe, and improvement in the area of inspections for revenues, because we are getting towards we're moving towards our targeted performance there. But I know that the team have been facing quite a backlog in that because of the redeployment of the team in Qs 1 and 2, so that still exists and we're still working through it. Just to give you some idea of what we're working on as a team, I am going to be in Q4 reporting to the committee about the counter-fraud strategy and operational work plan for 21 and 22. So I'm going to be in the process of meeting with senior managers to look at the fraud risks and updating the fraud risk profile for the organisation. Hopefully, give you a comprehensive fraud coverage for the next year. So all in all, good performance for the team, I believe. But I'll leave it there and answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Zach. Sorry, there was a pause while I found the right button to press. Any questions, colleagues? Councillor Edgington, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think, Zach, bearing in mind what has happened over the last 9 months, this is a very laudable performance by your team, and I think we should all thank you for that. Where you pick up problems, such as with the blue badge, even though there's no actual cost and it's relatively low key and low level crime, do you pass on that information to people like HMRC to consider? Because often when people are doing something like that, there's probably a lot else which they're doing. If they're willing to use badges or sometimes even pinch them, I suppose, they're probably doing a lot of other things where maybe there should be enforcement action by other organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the answer to that is currently we in terms of the council as a whole, we try to share information with other enforcement areas, and it's something that I am working on within the council and also with external partners like the police and so on, to improve the communication and intelligence sharing when it comes to cases such as these. I'm not saying that it's fully formed or that we're getting it completely right at the moment, but it is something that I want the team to progress with, and so that we've got good intelligence sharing. But I agree with you. I think there are opportunities to share intelligence more with external partners and such as HMRC. I can't say specifically for the blue badge cases that we would necessarily do that, because largely what we find with those kind of cases is that it's misuse by a family member of a badge holder. But at the same time, if we're talking about cases of say housing fraud, then usually there is a link between housing fraud and other types of cases as well, that the police may be involved in an HMRC. So it's something that I will actively look at in more detail, and maybe I can give you some better information on how we're progressing on that in the next committee. But I'll make a note and to report back for the next meeting.
Mia.
I think it's about always making sure we're mindful of not going on a fishing expedition as well, and getting the balance right in terms of taking one piece of data that says they've committed blue badge fraud and then saying, right, we're reporting you to HMRC because we suspect you might be involved in other things. So if the intelligence we've gathered suggests any other types of fraud are being committed, then definitely as a service we'll take it forward. But it's just about getting the balance right of proportionality.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any further questions? Okay, just a quick question from me, Zach. Under the sort of beds and sheds update, I think it's paragraph 3.3.3. You've said in the report that the sort of increase in sort of identification of beds and sheds has significant reputational positive impact for the council. What are you doing to advertise the results of this work?
At present, we are trying to get information out there. As you see from the forward look, we're trying to increase our presence on social media through uses of the council's Twitter profile and other social media platforms to and we'll be putting results out there through these sorts of media in our fraud awareness sessions with staff, but also talking to communications about getting results out there when we do that. So yeah, we can report on these sorts of things in numbers. I'll have to, again, it's something that we are trying to do more of, but again, it's not something that we could improve on it. I think is what I'm saying, and it's something we're actively looking at. Is getting more information out there on these kind of results, because you're right. It's a point to say if it has significant reputational positive impact, it's something that we need to be obviously talking about. Yeah.
And it's always hard to get the balance right, isn't it, between too much and too little and all of
Absolutely.
that. But from time to time, it feels like a good thing to me to do perhaps a little bit more of than we've done in the past.
We certainly we did get a press release out. Well, I say a press release, put it through communications and council's social media for the blue badge operation, for instance, and got the information out there that way. And so yes, we are doing it. We could do more of it though.
Okay, thank you for that. My sort of second, and I think probably final question is around the immigration enforcement officer. And again, within the report, you sort of suggest that, a bit disappointed that, you haven't had so many referrals this time, lately compared to other times. And you give some reasons for that. How happy are you that, we'll again kind of ramp up the sort of awareness as you've described a little bit in the report there?
Well, I think the current lockdown and home working restrictions are not helping us in that respect. But it's something that we're working on actively. So we're going to be using the all staff email, for instance, to notify staff, because that's our key customer when it comes to the immigration enforcement officer. Obviously, we've got a lot of proactive work that we're looking to use him for through just for the counter fraud work ourselves, but we do get good results when he's working for social care and housing as well. And I think we have seen a drop off specifically from areas such as social care, but we just need to get regular, and because I think sometimes it's a case of they forget that he's there, or they think that he's not working.
Because it's shut down or whatever.
Exactly, but it's something that we're going to again keep the information coming out about him working for the council, and hopefully we'll see those referrals improve as well.
Okay, thank you, Zach. If you were a gambling man, I think we said something like 1 million.
Yes, we did. Yes.
And if you were a gambling man, would you be happy with your kind of bet?
I would say that we will achieve the 1 million this year at least.
Excellent. I like that. That was definitive. Thank you very much indeed. And I can see Muir's got his hand. Well done to the team. I'll echo Tony's, Councillor Edgington's comment. A good report, a very good year to date in very difficult circumstances, similar to the audit team there. So well done to your colleagues too. So thank you, Zach. Muir.
Thank you, Chairman. Some sad news to share with the committee. I just need to let you all know that Zach, after 3.5 years at Hillingdon, will be joining the Scottish Government for his sins as head of counter-fraud practice. So we're just trying to work out the final date. It will be April, so there's a possibility he may or may not be around for the April Audit Committee. But I just, from my point of view, I think he's done an excellent job over the last 3.5 years. The counter-fraud team has really moved forward in that period, and I wanted to put it on record that my thanks to him for all the great work he's done over the last 3.5 years.
I don't know anyone called Zach anymore, I'm afraid to say. Zach, I knew about this as well, as you know. Congratulations on an excellent career move for yourself. I think you're going to be very busy up there, knowing colleagues in the Scottish Government that I do. It's a tremendous opportunity for you. You will be missed by ourselves as a committee, your colleagues in the counter-fraud and audit teams, and to the council as a whole. I think you've done a terrific job, actually, and I know you would have wanted to have seen it a bit further through, but that's the way things go, of course. So very sad to see you go, but thank you very much indeed for your hard work, and for getting us to where we are today, a kind of counter-fraud team that I think is absolutely excellent in terms of the results that you achieve, and the work that you do. So well done to you for that. And good luck, obviously, if we don't see you again in April. If you don't hit 1 million, though, that bet that you were so keen to kind of, take up, it's not far to Edinburgh on the train or in the car once we can travel again. So we'll track you down.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Zach. Okay, we now have agenda item 9, I think the Audit Committee forward programme for the year. Sorry, Councillor Edgington.
Yeah, it's to do with agenda item 9. So
okay.
Yes, if I could, there were a couple of things. One is that although I appreciate that we've talked about internal audit being involved in producing the report on the activity, on the performance of the Audit Committee, we also should have made a report to Council for the year 2019-20 on the activities of the Audit Committee. I know that previously we had a bit of a gap, but I thought we caught up, and we should have done one for last year as well. And I wonder whether that could be included somewhere on the forward programme, please. Secondly, bearing in mind that we've got quite a lot of new members of the Audit Committee, I wonder whether there would be an opportunity to have a review of the skills matrix we've had, and also some training, because although you and I have been on this committee for quite some time, I think most of the others probably have had relatively little involvement in audit. They may have had some accountancy knowledge and whatever, but I think there would be some benefit, particularly as audit is an important area and is one of the scrutiny areas of the council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edgington. Councillor Flynn.
Yes, Chairman, I'm happy with that suggestion from Councillor Edgington. I think that is perfectly reasonable, given there are some new members of the committee. So that point around training is one I'm happy to agree with.
Okay, thank you both very much. Muir, do you want to come in on that point then, and perhaps consider how best to take up on that?
Yeah, it was just whether is it felt that what we've done in the past, the bite-sized session, so if we identify in the skills matrix that someone has a particular strength in internal audit, but a particular weakness in understanding financial statements, then we'll run a financial statements session virtually for 20 minutes, half an hour, or one with external audit, one with internal audit. If that's the best way forward, then we that's quite a simple thing for us to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, could you remind me, Muir, the skills matrix that we've completed, I think on an annual basis, pretty much we've tried to do that. Is that something that comes from Democratic Services? And Neil, is that, again, you may not be aware of this, is that something, Muir, that Democratic Services have facilitated for us previously?
Democratic Services have facilitated it. I mean, I think it came out at the back of an internal audit recommendation. In terms of effectiveness of the audit committee, is good practice. So I can take it outside of the meeting. I can liaise with Neil. We can get the up-to-date skills matrix
circulated
with the new members, with all members. Identify what the needs are and start programming in bite-sized sessions.
Thank you. I think that would meet a point that I was going to make, and one that Councillor Edgington made as well. So yeah, very happy with that. Thank you very much. We can take an action for that. Coming back to the first point, Councillor Edgington, I certainly produced a report for EY, but I'm not sure that I wrote a report for the council. Is that something that I've missed off my list, Muir?
I don't wish to put Neil on the spot, but I think it's a Dem Services thing. What I can do is number one, I think we need to make sure, as Councillor Edgington has said,
let's get it on the agenda.
It needs to be on the forward plan, and I know it used to be, but somehow it's fallen off. So it needs to be on the forward plan soon after the annual report, so around July time. So it then goes on to full council. This is the report of the audit committee. It does come from you, Chairman, but it's actually physically not yourself that writes it, but you will obviously have the final say on the content. So I can work with Neil and yourself on that. Let's get it into the forward plan. There are a few other typos I think we need to pick up on the April 2021 date in terms of the forward plan as well. I've just spotted.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Any other observations, colleagues? Okay, then I think we'll bring. Sorry, I'm now in a mess with my own paperwork here in front of me. Do we need to check the dates at all or anything like that? I've lost my page 67.
So the counter fraud progress report going to April audit committee will be the 2021, not the 1920.
Right, thank you.
Housing benefit assurance process will presumably be 2021.
No, that's still the last year's audit.
Is it? Oh, right, still that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can work that through offline and get the dates right for next time. Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, now that's, unless there are any final questions on that or points, we'll move through then to making an announcement about the end of part one. So we're now going to move to part two of the meeting. Can I please ask that the committee and officers remain on online now while we'll cut the live stream to YouTube. Thank you all very much for watching us this evening. Thank you.